Most money stress doesn't come from big mistakes. It comes from small decisions you barely notice. Spending without pausing. Losing track of how long your money needs to last. Saying yes, while your mind quietly feels heavy. This video isn't about discipline or willpower. It's about how money habits slowly take space in your mind. Most people don't make poor spending decisions because they lack knowledge. They don't happen because someone is irresponsible with money. They happen in very ordinary moments, when you're tired, busy, or mentally drained. Money usually leaves your account not because you chose it carefully, but because there was no pause between emotion and action. Not because you were careless, but because there was no space to stop. Many people think money habits are about morality. That spending less is good, and spending more is bad. But money doesn't care whether you're good or bad. It simply responds to your behavior in small, fast moments that often go unnoticed. You may recognize this pattern. The day has been long. An invitation comes up. Something feels reasonable in the moment. And you say yes, without much thought. Not because you don't understand the consequences, but because you want things to feel easier for a moment. And those small moments, repeated over time, create more financial pressure than any single, wrong, decision ever could. Welcome to Financial Awakening. This is not a place for judging what's right or wrong. We don't talk about moralizing money. We talk about behavior. About what actually happens in your mind just before money leaves. In this video, we won't ask you to change who you are. We'll simply look at something very small, yet very powerful. The moment right before you spend. Because when you create even a brief pause in that moment, many decisions begin to change naturally. Without force. Without guilt. Without pressure. If this way of looking at money feels familiar to you, you may consider subscribing to Financial Awakening. Your support helps us continue creating calm, practical content that makes money feel lighter, one step at a time. Before we continue, here's a small question to reflect on. The last time you spent money and later felt a bit mentally heavy. What was happening right before you made that decision? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's continue. There is a common misunderstanding about money habits. Many people believe controlling spending is about discipline, about resisting temptation and being stronger than desire. But in reality, many spending decisions don't happen when the mind is clear. They happen when the mind is tired. When you're mentally drained, the brain doesn't want to analyze more. It wants things to end quickly. And spending, in many cases, becomes a way to close that loop of exhaustion. So the issue is not whether you have enough willpower. The issue is whether there is a pause between emotion and action. That pause doesn't need to be long. It doesn't require a complex system. Sometimes, it's just a few seconds to notice. What am I actually spending money for right now? When there is no pause, money leaves very naturally. There is no sense of danger. No internal alarm. Just a small decision that passes quickly. But when those moments repeat often enough, they leave behind a mental weight that's hard to explain. What's interesting is this. When you begin creating a small pause before spending, your behavior starts to change on its own. Not because you force yourself, but because the mind has space to choose. You begin to notice the difference between, I want this, and, I'm just exhausted. Between something that brings lasting satisfaction and something that only offers brief relief. Pausing doesn't remove enjoyment from your life. It simply prevents you from paying for that enjoyment with prolonged stress afterward. In personal finance, many meaningful changes don't come from adding more rules. They come from stopping at the right moment. Before money leaves. Before you place yourself into another cycle of quiet pressure. That's why this video isn't about cutting spending. It's about creating a small moment of breathing room between feeling and deciding. Because sometimes, a brief pause is enough to protect something far more valuable than money. There is something subtle in the way people relate to money. We tend to look at the amount we have, but rarely at the time that amount needs to last. When money is available, the first feeling is often relief. But that relief doesn't last long, because money doesn't exist in isolation. It moves through days. Stress doesn't come from how much money you have. It comes from how many days that money is expected to carry. Two people can have the same amount, yet feel completely different. One feels calm. The other feels pressure. Not because they spend differently, but because they see money through a different lens. When money is separated from time, it creates a sense of false safety. It feels like there is enough. But that feeling is only true in the moment, not across the entire stretch ahead. When a simple question enters the mind, how many days does this money need to last? The internal rhythm shifts. Not toward fear. Not toward guilt. But toward clarity. This clarity doesn't instantly reduce spending. But it gives each decision more weight. Not heaviness, awareness. You begin to feel the pace of the month. Some days feel open. Some days ask for restraint. And some days, saying no feels natural, without the need for justification. When money is viewed alongside time, impulsive pressure softens. Not because of self-control, but because the mind understands continuity. This isn't strict budgeting. It doesn't require spreadsheets. It doesn't require apps. It's a simple human habit. Money left, and days left. Financial calm often doesn't come from earning more. It comes from refusing to separate money from time in your thinking. And when those two stay connected, you don't just manage money better. You move through life with a steadier pace. Much of financial stress doesn't come from spending itself. It comes from the feeling of having to say yes. Saying yes to plans when you're not fully ready. Saying yes to expenses to avoid standing out. Saying yes to keep things smooth. To avoid judgment. To avoid appearing difficult. What often follows isn't relief. It's quiet discomfort. The unease after spending usually isn't about the amount. It's about the decision not aligning with your current capacity. Many people confuse saying no with rejecting others. In reality, most no's are simply boundaries with yourself. When money lacks structure, saying no feels heavy. Every refusal carries guilt. Guilt for disappointing others. Guilt for missing out. Guilt for feeling too cautious. But when you begin to understand your financial rhythm, no becomes neutral. Not a statement. Not resistance. Just quiet honesty about where you are. When spending decisions are seen in the context of time, you don't need explanations. You don't need justifications. You simply recognize that something doesn't fit right now. Financial calm often shows up in small moments. A message that doesn't require an immediate reply. An invitation considered instead of accepted by default. A pause that doesn't come with self-judgment. Saying no in these moments doesn't make you distant. It helps you remain steady. And when you're no longer cleaning up the aftermath of forced decisions, mental space returns. Financial freedom, at its simplest, is the ability to make choices aligned with your reality, without carrying guilt along the way. Looking back at everything discussed, one thing becomes clear. Many meaningful financial changes don't begin with numbers, but with the rhythm of the mind. It's not about how much you spend. It's about how decisions are made, and the state you're in when making them. Sustainable money habits are often quiet. They don't feel like quick wins. They don't come with a sense of immediate certainty. But over time, they create enough stability to prevent being pulled by every small choice. When you pause briefly before spending, you're not just delaying action. You're giving your mind space to observe. When you know how much money remains relative to the days ahead, decisions are no longer driven by momentary emotion. They become contextual, rather than reactive. And when you can say no without guilt, you're not withdrawing from life. You're protecting your internal balance. Each of these habits may seem small on its own. Together, they quietly reshape how money fits into your life. Money no longer needs constant control. It becomes part of a system that moves with your mental energy and daily rhythm. Financial calm doesn't mean never feeling concern. It means returning to balance more easily after each decision. When money occupies less mental space, room opens for longer-term thinking. For creativity. For choices not rooted in fear. This isn't a promise of fast results. It's an invitation to view the relationship between behavior and ease differently. If there's one takeaway from this video, it may be the realization that how you interact with money each day reflects how you care for your own sense of calm. Looking back at everything shared, one quiet insight stands out. Financial stress rarely comes from big decisions. It usually builds from small habits repeated day after day. Not because of a lack of discipline, but because money often enters our lives without enough pause for awareness. When spending decisions happen too quickly, money slowly takes up more mental space. The core lesson here isn't about spending less. It's about creating space between thought and action. Pausing briefly, noticing how much money remains and how many days lie ahead, helps money return to its proper place. You don't need to change everything at once. A shift in how you respond to money each day is often enough. If this perspective resonated with you, consider subscribing to Financial Awakening. Your support helps the channel continue sharing calm, practical insights that make money feel lighter and more manageable.